If you have already watched the video on e-receipts, you'll find that much of the next couple of minutes are the same, and that's because the setup process is the same. I apologize for repeating here if you've already heard it, but it's here for those who are starting with this video about end-of-year tax statements. The first step in the process is to set up an e-tax statement template. It is a separate template from your printed tax statement template, although it can look similar. Synergy staff will work with you to set up your template. It is important to remember that the e-tax statement is an emailed statement that the donor will receive in their email and may or may not print out. It is not a printed statement that will be emailed as an attachment. Since the donor is responsible to print out the email, the look of the statement will depend on their ability to print from their email program. Therefore, it's a good idea to keep the layout simple. The goal is to provide them with a tax statement and a thank you message. It will probably never look as good as your printed statement when and if it is printed. Denari determines which donors will get printed or emailed statements based on that donor's preference, and that can be selected by you internally, or the donor can make that selection through their online community account. So the next step is to set up the preferences for each donor. But first you must decide what your philosophy will be toward tax statements. One option is to decide that all donors with an email address will get e-tax statements, whether they state that as their preference or not. Or you could decide that all donors will get printed statements unless they tell you differently. We can set the global setting for either of those policies when setting up your template, and it can be changed later if needed. If no preference is set for a donor, Denari will default to the global setting. Let's assume now that all of your donors will get printed statements unless they tell you that they want the email version. Once you know their preference, you're ready to set them up, and it's fairly simple. Click on first Names here on the left side, then Name List Management, and now select the donor's name. From here, you can click on the e-correspondence emails in the right side menu. If they don't already have an email address here, you can click Add New to create a new one. We're going to go ahead and click on one that's already here. You'll fill in the address and choose a status. New here simply means that this email address has never been used by Denari to send an email. Once that happens, it will change to active, and you can set it to active here if you want. The last thing you need to do here is hit the Make Primary button at the top of the page. That will cause this email address to be the one that Denari uses for the e-receipts. Now click Save. Now we can set the preference by clicking e-correspondence preferences on the right, select the email address in the e-tax field, and choose the delivery method on the right. Again, hit Save. From now on, Denari will not produce a printed statement when you run pledge statements. To run e-tax statements, click on the Email button on the left, and then click eEOY Statements. Stands for End of Year. Running e-tax statements uses the same process as printed statements. First, enter something in the Must Have Given At Least field. Some organizations only send statements to those donors who have given more than some amount. Next, enter a starting and ending date. The tax statements will show the gifts given in that date range. The starting and ending donor account number fields are optional here and are only used when sending to very selected donors, usually just one donor. If you need to send a statement to just one donor, put that donor's account number in both the starting and ending fields. The Only Donors In field refers to a name segment that you have created earlier. It allows you to limit who you get tax statements based on the filters you select in the name segment. So if you want to send to all donors who have made donations, you can leave this field blank. If you need help with your name segment, you can view the video found on the video menu page. Finally, you can select a letter for the statement. You have previously created that earlier by clicking the plus sign and then letters. Denari will then display the letter body at the top of the statement, and we recommend that you keep that letter body fairly short since this is a long statement. It's listing all of the donors' gifts for the time period. Now, once the form is filled out, click the Submit eEOY Request button at the top on the right. At this point, Denari does not begin sending emails. It only creates the job that will be waiting for your approval. The reason for the approval process is to give you a chance to review the statements before they're sent. To approve them, you'll click the email button here on the left, and then e-correspondence job queue. Here you will find the jobs that are waiting for approval. Under the View column, you can click the View link to view the job and to make sure that everything looks the way you want it to look. Once you're satisfied that the job is ready to go, you can click anywhere in that row to open the approval form. Simply enter the approval code and then click Approve Job at the top on the right. The emails are now being sent and there's no going back. They can't be retrieved at this point. So where do you get the approval code? We'll click the email button on the left, and now e-correspondence control record. In the authorization information section, you have a button that says Change Authorization Code. You'll click that button, change the password or username here, and then click on Change Password. And once you've set this up for other e-correspondence statements, you won't need to set that up again. This is the same code that you use for all e-correspondence, whether it be e-receipts, e-pledge statements, etc. And while we're here, you'll notice some other fields. You can ignore the fields in the default information section here. However, there are two fields down below that we will use. The From User field, for example, is what the user will see or the donor will see when they receive an email from you. And normally you would put the company name there. The second field is the Reply to email. This is the email address that will be used should the donor hit the reply button from their email. And finally on this page is the inactive bounce count. Bounces are emails that can't be delivered for a variety of reasons. Some internet service providers and spam filters identify emails from the same address as spam when they are bounced several times, and that sender is then blacklisted. That will allow no other email from that sender forever. So you can put a limit on the number of bounces that can take place before Denari marks that email address as inactive so that no further attempts can be made. Usually a 1 or a 2 here is a good number. And again, once these fields are set for other e-correspondence products, then you won't need to change them here again. Sometimes there's a problem with an email address and those emails may bounce, as we just mentioned, and when that happens you'll usually get an email telling you that your email to a specific person has been returned or bounced. Sometimes though you may not get the bounce notification email. So how do you know when email is bounced and who are the donors? E-tax statements are a little different from the other e-statement features in that they have a specific report. So you'll click the email button here on the left, and then eEOY statements that have bounced this year. Running this report will give you an email list of those emails that have bounced from your tax statements. You can then contact the donors to correct their email address or send printed statements. This concludes this video on end-of-year tax statements. If you have any questions, please contact tech support through the support button at the top of the Denari page.